Redraft ends, but Dynasty is life. I'm Theo Greminger, and today I'm joined by Pat Fitzmaurice of Fantasy Pros. Always love chopping it up with Pat. I always give him props for this one, sort of like Dynasty Life, press coverage. A lot of my pods that I've hosted, definitely Fits on Fantasy was an influence on those. Pat, you did it for a while. Like that show was absolutely awesome. Now you're crushing it over at Fantasy Pros. So welcome to Dynasty Life, man. We were just doing a rookie mock draft a few weeks ago on the Sonic Truth pod with Matt Kelly. And of course, Debro was in that one as well. What have you had going on? I know you guys are getting ready. You're doing a lot of Dynasty content, a lot of NFL content over there, getting ready for the NFL draft.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, Theo. One of my favorite guys in the biz. Always love talking to you, whether it's formally on a show or just hanging out at a bar at the Fantasy Football Expo in August. So great to join you. And yeah, right now we're really Dynasty focused. I would urge people to check out the Fantasy Pros Dynasty podcast, which I'm a regular on, along with Ryan Wormley and Scott Bogman. And I've been doing mock draft articles this year, Theo. I'm already on 2.0, which came out last week. And already since that one, some things have changed, and I'm probably going to have to make some changes to 3.0, which is probably going to be next week. So, yeah, man, busy time. But the run up to the NFL draft is always just a great time of year for us.
Yeah, I love it. I also do the NFL mock draft articles. I've been attempting to take a dive at doing like a 3-rounder, but I think I'm going to do one more 1-rounder and then save that a little bit closer to the draft. It's a lot of fun doing those. It's a lot of work, though. It's not just like throwing it out there. I feel like you get held accountable on a lot of these picks. Maybe not so much now with a month to go till the NFL draft, but you feel like a lot of pressure to get it correct and all that kind of stuff. For at least for me, but they're a lot of fun. And a quick reminder to our YouTube audience: Dynasty Life is leaving Player Profiler YouTube. We might have a new YouTube host for Dynasty Life, but it's looking like right now for the month of April, it's going to be podcast only. So make sure you are subscribing to us on Apple Pods, on Spotify. I'm going to put the show link in the description. And if you go back, there's actually been a couple of Dynasty Lifes that have dropped recently. If you like hearing us discuss the rookies, that's been my last few shows. I had Dave Kluge and Alan Soslowski on. I had Cody Carpentier on. We've been rolling. Jim Coventry came on. We've been rolling through on Dynasty Life. But today, Pat and I are specifically talking about rookie sleepers. And Pat, this is sort of a loaded term. The word sleeper in redraft gets people really heated. One-man sleeper might be like a 7th-round pick that can reach wide receiver 1 land, or it breaks through multiple tiers of running back. Whereas a lot of people are like, the sleeper to me is somebody in like round 18, 19, 20, or potentially undrafted. If I don't really know about the guy, he's not a sleeper. Do you have a definition of what you would think about when you're talking about a rookie sleeper? The audience for Fantasy Pros and certainly for Player Profiler, it's an educated audience. I don't know if we're slipping a player name past them, but how do you view this term? And it's a little loaded in the industry, gets people heated.
Yeah, we're definitely not slipping anything by Player Profiler consumers. Like, they're just really sharp. And I don't know if there's a name we could drop of any player who's likely to be picked in a 5-round, 12-team rookie mock draft who they're not going to know. So I would say for sleeper, maybe for me, loosely defined as guys likely to be picked in the 4th or 5th round of a 12-team, 5-round rookie mock draft or rookie draft.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I even have a couple guys that I think might slip into the 3rd today. We're going to talk about. For me, it's sort of like the word sleeper has been guys who are sleepers to break through multiple tiers. Maybe a guy can turn around and turn into a high-end RB2, but like Pat said, you're able to get him outside of the first 2 rounds of rookie drafts. For me, it's sort of an upside swing on several of these guys. I don't think when you start drafting guys in the 4th, 5th round of your rookie drafts, some formats don't even have a 4th and 5th round. FFPC goes 7, which is just wild. So I feel like you're better off chasing ceiling plays than trying to chase floors. You end up with roster cloggers. A lot of these players end up getting cut anyway off of your dynasty roster. Would you agree with being sort of more aggressive the lower you go in rookie drafts?
Yeah, I think so. And I know a couple of the guys I'm going to mention, Theo, like the odds are they are not going to be stars. And I think the odds are betting that they can be useful pieces on a fantasy roster and guys you're not ashamed to have on your fantasy roster. But, realistically, the ceiling might be wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 from a fantasy standpoint. But I feel pretty good about these guys having a chance to get there as opposed to being the dreaded roster cloggers who you're looking to cut 2026 or 2027.
Yeah, and even last year there was multiple leagues where Bucky Irving fell into the third round of rookie picks. I know I had one FFPC league where he fell to like the 401, mostly living in that third round. Obviously, he has steamed up into RB1 land, but Tyrone Tracy was another guy who was a player that a lot in the fantasy community were on as a third round pick. He hit. Puka Nakua was one. We'll give a shout out to your often podcast partner, Derek Brown. Debro was pounding the table for Puka Nakua. Ray Garvin pounding the table for Puka Nakua. Certainly Jax Falcone of the Undroppables. There was some Puka Nakua backers, but he was still a player that slipped into like the fourth round. And Tank Dell, despite being a third round pick, was a player that the community really, really faded because of his size, and there was a lack of enthusiasm about the Houston offense at the time. All of those players hit, and there's been several others. So we're chasing big time outcomes with players that will get drafted a little lower. Maybe one or two of these guys could sneak into the second round depending on landing spots, but more likely than not, we're talking about third round of rookie picks or later with every guy we'll talk about today. But Pat, you've been doing articles about the NFL draft, mocking the first round. Let's talk about how you see this first round playing out. Right now, there's been a lot more steam with quarterbacks going towards the top. We had in Abdul Carter's the first overall pick for about a month. Now that tide has turned, Cam Ward had his pro day yesterday. Which way do you see the very top of the NFL draft going? Specifically, what are the Titans going to do at 1? What's Cleveland going to do at 2?
So it seems like Cam Ward is now sort of being considered a lock to go at number 1, Theo. And I think that makes sense. Like, it seems like he's probably the least polarizing QB prospect. You're nowhere in the NFL if you don't have your quarterback of the future. I think the Titans have decided Will Levis ain't it for them. So Cam Ward right now is either like minus 800 or minus 750 to be the first pick on the sports books. And so it's hard to go the opposite way. Now, the Browns at number 2, that's where things start to get interesting. Because in my mock draft 2.0 last week, I had Abdul Carter going there. But apparently, Myles Garrett, who had requested a trade not long ago and has now been placated and is back happily in the Cleveland Browns fold, apparently he told Andrew Siciliano on his podcast that he has a pretty good idea of who the Browns' next quarterback is going to be. Now, I'm guessing to placate him and want to keep him in place, that's, probably not Aaron Rodgers, a patchwork solution. I don't think there's been much steam about Rodgers going there. I don't think Russell Wilson would really get Myles Garrett that excited. It kind of suggests that it's going to be Shedeur. And, I like Shedeur a lot as a prospect. So that makes 3, 4, and 5 pretty interesting, Theo, because I think the Giants would take Shedeur if he was there for them. I don't know what they do at number 3 because the obvious next best picks are Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, but the Giants just signed Paulson Adebo, and they have Deonte Banks, who they picked in the first round a couple of years ago, Andrew Phillips, who was a nice find for them as a slot corner, and they've got Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns on the edges. So they don't really have a need there unless they want to take Hunter and make him a wide receiver primarily. It's a possibility. And at number 4, the Patriots, I mean, I would think their priority would be protecting their franchise quarterback, Drake May. And, they could go BPA. I think they'd probably take Travis Hunter if he was there. I'm not sure if they would take Abdul Carter if he was there or try to trade down to a team itching to get an impact edge rusher. So that's really interesting. And, I've kind of had the Giants or the Jaguars taking Mason Graham all along at number 5. Just seems like he'd be a really good fit. But things could change, and all of a sudden maybe Hunter Carter is sitting there on the board for the Jags, and that would be pretty hard for them to pass up. So a lot of moving parts, man. And, it'd be a lot neater if the Browns didn't take Shedeur, but I think they probably are going to take him now. And, that could prompt some maneuvering, and maybe we see someone trade into the top 5.
Yeah, definitely a lot to unpack there. I agree. I think that it's going to be 1-2 quarterback. Ward Sanders makes sense. It's sort of where I've been at for a while. And you can't pass up these opportunities to take these rookie quarterbacks. You don't know if you're going to get back to a number 1 or number 2 overall pick. In Cleveland's case, they really hope they're not there. Certainly Tennessee as well. So I think they go quarterback. Giants, it's a funny one because I talked with Cody Carpentier about this, who is very much, like yourself, into the NFL draft content, to say the least. And Cody made a case for kind of both those paths. They've got a type. The edge rusher has been a thing that the organization really values. I don't know if having a third, like having 2 good ones, would preclude them. Sort of a way to chase Philadelphia, chase Washington, just be really, really good with guys who can get to the quarterback. And Carter certainly checks off a ton of boxes there, even if you've got quality on the team. But I think it'll eventually be Hunter. You brought up the ability to play 2 ways, the ability to really help that offense. I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson had 140 targets for them. That's not going to be the plan. And you can never have too many good defensive backs as well. Hunter's just exceptional. So I actually think it'll be Hunter at the 3. New England, for better or for worse, will take Abdul Carter despite needing offensive linemen. And I love Mason Graham, one of my favorite players in this draft on the defensive side of the ball. But I think it's going to be Armand Membu getting into the top 5. I just think he's the best offensive line prospect. I think NFL teams value him. So really, really interesting one. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about Pat's favorite players at each position. And he's going to reveal his rookie rankings.
Rookie. It's all about rookie talk in fantasy football right now. So why not go use all that knowledge to do something other than a mock draft? Chris Jimino won $8,000 with just 2 teams last year, and each draft took 5 minutes. That's pretty good ROI. You can start doing rookie drafts for money today on Fast Draft. The Origins tournament is live. It is the place to go and monetize your knowledge of rookies, and use your favorite player profiler host promo code for a $25 deposit match. Now let's go start drafting faster.
So special for the Dynasty Life audience, if you want to register for Fast Draft, download the app, use the code Theo, and you get a $50 deposit match. It used to be $25. So that's available to you. And a reminder to everybody watching this on YouTube, Dynasty Life should have a new YouTube home, but for now, it looks like podcast only for the month of April. So if you've been enjoying this show on YouTube, we have a very big YouTube audience for Dynasty Life. Make sure you subscribe to the pod, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. The links will be in the show description. Pat, let's keep this going. Let's stay at the quarterback spot. We talked about Sanders. We talked about Ward. You talked about how the NFL is going to rank these guys. How do you rank the top 5 quarterbacks in this class?
I have Shedeur ranked ahead of Cam Ward
Okay.
in the top 2, Theo, and that might be hot takey. I don't know how you see it. I love Shedeur's accuracy, and I think he does a lot of the things well that NFL teams are going to appreciate. Things like throwing with anticipation rather than needing to see it, see the guy break open and then throw it. Pre-snap reads. But the way, he's not just accurate, he is a conscientious thrower of the football. Like, he will never lead his receivers into a big hit that I've ever seen. He does not throw hospital balls. He throws balls like he might throw a ball slightly to the outside of a receiver on purpose, where the guy has to go and get it, but there's no way the ball's going to be intercepted. And I got an appreciation for Shedeur watching some of the film that I didn't get maybe when I was just watching Colorado games, and, just kind of observing rather than actually thinking a lot about what the quarterback was doing and paying attention to that. So he's not flawless. I mean, he doesn't have a rocket arm. I wonder how that might play in Cleveland, where, I tend to fade weather effects, Theo, but like that's one stadium where I worry about weather effects because they get a wind tunnel effect in that stadium with the gusts coming in off Lake Erie. So I do wonder about that. But I like him a lot. I like Cam Ward too. I mean, he caught my attention when he was still at Washington State, beating up on my Wisconsin Badgers a couple of years ago. And at the time I was like, wow, who's this guy? He's pretty good. And we saw that like a guy who went from whatever, a 0-star prospect in high school, starting at Incarnate Word college, and then just this meteoric rise after he had, I think in high school, he played in like a wing T offense where he just like threw 10 passes a game or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like with him. I do worry that he maybe has a little Jameis Winston to his game. He tries to play hero ball a lot. He holds onto the ball painfully long at times. And it seems like he's sometimes unwilling to take the check down, is just always looking for that play downfield. So that's kind of my one reservation about him, and part of the reason why I've Shedeur ranked higher. Then it's Jackson Dart. I'm still sort of agnostic on him, Theo. Like I know Debro, Derek Brown, my colleague, you mentioned him earlier. Big Jackson Dart fan. To me, he's a little bit early to vacate the pocket at some of the times. And, Debro insists that he has seen him work through progressions and read the whole field. I didn't see as much of that as Debro saw when we were both kind of reviewing Jackson Dart. But, there's a lot to like, though. He's a willing and able runner, not super fast, but kind of a Josh Allen type runner where it's just opportunistic and he's ready to take off and go. Great placement on downfield throws, really good at play action, which is a little thing that might play up in the NFL. So he's number 3. Then Jalen Milroe, who's just the ball of clay, like with 4.4 speed and a rocket arm. That arm is really inconsistent. He's somewhere on the Anthony Richardson, Malik Willis continuum as prospects go. But man, if he gets with the right team and someone who can work with him and develop him, like he could be a serious impact player for fantasy. I mean, like ask Georgia fans. He put up nearly 400 passing yards and over 100 rushing yards against the Bulldogs last fall. Whereas Jackson Dart kind of struggled against some of the better teams he played, the Georgias and the Alabamas. Like there were some really good games for Milroe, and also another guy who crushed my Wisconsin Badgers. That happened last fall. And then number 5, Tyler Shuck. I feel like there's kind of a drop off for fantasy after that. And we're basically looking at guys who might be qualified to hold a clipboard in the NFL for the next 5 or 6 years. Shuck's interesting. He's this older prospect, but the combination of like size, I think he's like 6'5", speed, he's actually pretty mobile and has a pretty good arm. He's been hurt a lot throughout his college career, which explains why he's such an overage prospect and wasn't a full-time starter till he was like, didn't get in his first full college season until he was like 24 or whatever. But I do like him more than the Quinn Ewerses and Will Howards and Kyle McCords.
Yeah, it's a big drop off from 4 to 5. I'm with you. Shuck is my QB5 as well. I think he'll be the highest drafted of the guys that are not in the big 4. Jalen Milroe, interesting one. Like you said, in terms of like long-term NFL stability, not sure. But in terms of do I want him in my fantasy lineup whenever he starts NFL games? Yes. And I think he could end up being a real value, especially in superflex formats if he falls. Because again, anytime he's starting for an NFL team, he's going to have the ability to really help you, especially from the QB2 spot in Dynasty. Jackson Dart, I'm higher on than you are. He's my QB3, but I think he's a first-round pick. Underrated mobility as well, Pat, where his rushing production was a lot higher than Ward or Sanders ever were at any point in their career. Jackson Dart can scramble. This is a guy who was able to accumulate yards with his legs. I think if he starts, he could have a potentially Bo Nix-like 400-plus rushing yards on top of his fantasy production. Big arm. I think that there's enough there where I think he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. And then I just flip-flop 1, 2. I like the Cam Ward gunslinger mentality where I think Ward, there's a range of outcomes here, but I think he could end up really, really hitting and being a big fantasy producer. Mobile enough, not a scrambler, but definitely a plus athlete as well at the quarterback spot. Agree, he holds on the ball a lot, but guys can fix that in the NFL. The Sunday players coming at you. is a little bit more intimidating than guys from Wake Forest pass rush. And then Shedeur Sanders with you, long-term NFL starter. I like Shedeur a lot. I think he's fine this year, but he is my QB2. So maybe I'm a little higher on Ward. We're pretty much in line, everything else. Running back-wise, this has been called the best class since 2017. I know we are both really excited about this running back class in general. Where do you see Ashton Jeanty ending up? In your mock drafts, where have you had him sort of focused in? Is it Las Vegas or is it somewhere else?
Mock draft 1.0, Theo, was the Bears at number 10. Mock draft 2.0 is the Raiders at 6. And I don't know if he makes it out of the top 10. And if he does, I think maybe the Cowboys are probably the backstop for him at number 12. But just like, I know the Raiders could also maybe use an outside wide receiver. So they could maybe be like candidates for Tet McMillan, but they're also candidates for Ashton Jeanty. And which guy do we think is more the needle mover as a prospect, Jeanty or Tet? Like, I think it's Jeanty. Like, this guy is his contact balance is incredible. Like,
he's awesome.
Walter Payton type contact balance. Like, this guy is just so hard to knock off his feet. And, I don't want to overdo it with the superlatives, because we have seen some pretty good RB prospects in recent years with Saquon Barkley and Bijan Robinson. But like, Jeanty is up there with those guys. I really think so. I know some people, as we get closer to the draft, might knock him because he played against lesser competition at Boise State. But the other thing about it, playing at Boise State, everyone was gearing up to stop Ashton Jeanty. Like, this guy did not see any light boxes in college, and they still couldn't stop him. Even the better teams he played were all in with stopping Oregon, Penn State, and had trouble doing it. I mean, he great game against Oregon. If you want to see him against a good defense, go put on the highlights of Ashton Jeanty running against Oregon. So yeah, I think he's a stud, and I would like to see him wind up with the Raiders, because I don't think they're going to want to go into the season with Sincere McCormick as their lead back.
Yeah, and I think in the Chip Kelly offense, we would get that sort of pace that we would love to see for Jeanty. I think that would maybe really, really accentuate his potential ceiling outcome in that offense. I also think that with Chip Kelly, we'll get opportunities for him to catch the ball out of the backfield. This is a remarkable player and a true number one in any single format, even with Cam Ward going off the board as the QB1, even with your general admiration for Shedeur Sanders as a prospect. Neither one is even going to challenge Jeanty in Superflex. He's the 101. He's fantastic. How do you rank the rest of the running back class, Pat, specifically looking at the top 10 here?
Yeah, I love Omarion Hampton. So he's my number 2, just this powerful, violent downhill runner who's a nightmare to bring down when he has a head of steam, and just kind of a no-nonsense guy, but he catches passes. He's big. He tested like a champ at the combine. Really like him. Travion Henderson, who maybe is sort of a knockoff Jahmyr Gibbs, just a guy who I don't think he had more than 12 carries in any game this past fall for Ohio State, but it doesn't matter. Like, he can do a lot on just 10 to 15 touches a game, just big time speed, acceleration, quick feet, so dangerous in the open field, productive as a pass catcher. So yeah, I like him a lot. I've got kind of a virtual tie for the 4th spot. Like, I can't make up my mind between Caleb Johnson and Quinshon Judkins. And right now I've got Johnson higher. Kind of a committee back his first 2 years, broke out in his final season. Another really powerful downhill guy, very effective at the goal line. Just like, put this dude in a zone scheme and let him go. And I think he could be, like, has RB1 potential as a rookie. And I think Quinshon Judkins, like, opened a lot of eyes with the way he tested. But like, I don't know if you follow college football, this guy stepped in as a true freshman at Ole Miss in the SEC, the best conference in the country, and had over 1,500 yards and 16 touchdowns rushing. And, like, maybe some of the luster came off because he had to share work with Travion Henderson this past year. But this dude is, powerful, athletic, really good contact balance. So that's the top 5. Then it's, a lot of guys who I still really like, but it's a little harder to order them once you get beyond that big 5. So I've got at number 6, I've got RJ Harvey, slightly older prospect, but man, this dude is just like so elusive and quick. Yeah, I'm not worried about overaged. Like by all accounts, just a team leader and a really smart kid. And, also had a really good scouting combine at number 7. Dylan Sampson, just like super, his movement skills are something else. It's just so quick and explosive. And I think he's a lot better than Jalen Wright was coming out of college. I like him a lot more. It's always kind of hard to evaluate the Tennessee guys because it's such a wonky system that Josh Heupel uses. And like, I feel like it's kind of a hard translation from that system in Knoxville to the NFL. But like, I don't want to knock it because like Heupel's probably the best play caller in college football. But I always feel a little bit of trepidation when I want to rank the Tennessee guys highly because I just don't know how it's going to translate. But I do feel good about the raw tools with Sampson. Then Devin Neal at number 8, Cam Scatterbo at number 9, and DJ Giddens at number 10. Scatterbo's a polarizing guy, Theo. I don't know how you feel about him. It's just one of those things like, man, after a while, seeing was believing. And the way that guy put Arizona State on his back in the college football playoffs. And I know my Dynasty podcast partner, Scott Bogman, who's a big University of Texas fan, like he couldn't be higher on Cam Scatterbo after watching what that guy did and almost knocking the Longhorns out of the college football playoffs and basically just being a one-man gang on offense.
Yeah, Scatterbo for me, like, I don't know. I've had him just outside my top 10, which I guess I'm much lower than consensus. I think there's going to be like 12 guys selected on by the end of day 2 at the running back spot. I truly believe the NFL knows what they're getting into with this running back class, and you can have a guy ranked there and still like him. I just am higher on other guys in this class. And if Scatterbo lands well, gets the necessary draft capital, I'm perfectly comfortable moving him up. Like outside my top 10, you mentioned Sampson, you mentioned Scatterbo, you mentioned Devin Neal. All 3 are outside of my top 10. I also throw Brashard Smith outside of my top 10. We could have talked about Brashard Smith as a sleeper today, but I like all those guys a lot. And if this were last year, they'd be ranked a lot higher. But my rankings are, of course, Genty at the 1, Omarion Hampton at the 2, Henderson and Judkins. I'm willing to keep them like 3-4 and let the NFL tell me which way I would like them. Like Quinshon Judkins goes to Cleveland, first pick in the 2nd round. I'm all over him. Travion Henderson goes 29 to Washington, all over him. And I want exposure to both those guys. I know there's a thing on Twitter X this week where people are questioning Judkins, but I feel like it's always everything with Judkins. He's slow after the national title game. It's the guy's slow, doesn't have breakaway speed. Look, somebody tracked him down on like a 70+ yard run. And then of course he rips up the combine. He's been so good for so long that people want to poke holes in his game, but unbelievable production at the highest possible level of college football at 2 separate schools. Travion Henderson, everything you said, it's sort of Jahmyr Gibbs light. NFL teams chasing that Gibbs profile. Henderson has the home run hitting ability, also probably has the highest receiving ceiling of the guys who we think are going to get drafted early in this whole class. Henderson could land on a team where it's not crazy to think he could be a guy who catches 70 passes at some point early in his career in a season. I'm with you on RJ Harvey. I think that there's a segment of people who are really getting into RJ Harvey. I know Cody Carpentier has him right here at like RB5, RB6. I know Brett Whitefield at Fantasy Points has him RB3. Debro likes him a lot. I have him at RB6. I think this will be a correction guy where certain sites who don't have him as highly, they're going to adjust after the NFL draft because I think NFL teams will like him. And the age thing doesn't really change anything for me because for a lot of these running backs, we're looking at 2-3 year windows for our dynasty team anyway. So what do I care if RJ Harvey's 24 versus 22? Would I prefer him to be 20 years old and the same profile? Of course, but it's not going to deter me from drafting him. And I also think he can catch the ball. Bashal Tutin for me at RB7. This is a guy who's moved up significantly. I think NFL teams are going to chase that Travion Henderson profile, and that's going to help Tutin get into like early round 3. I think he's got a chance. Damien Martinez, RB8. I like him a lot. DJ Giddens, RB9. We're going to talk about him a little later. And then Ollie Gordon, another one of these guys like Ollie Gordon. It's a point where I just can't drop him anymore. RB10 seems about right for him. So that's sort of where I'm at. We're going to dive into a couple of these running backs when we discuss our sleepers in a few moments. Let's talk about wide receiver, Pat. Rookie wide receivers have been a cheat code for drafters for years now. And it's been unbelievable run of production. 4 out of the last 5 years, you've had at least one rookie finish top 6 in PPR scoring. We had Jamar Chase, we had Justin Jefferson, we had Puka Nacua, and then last year we had 2 of them, Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, both hit top 6 levels, and Ladd McConkey not too far behind at over 15 points per game. And then the one year where those guys that we didn't have a rookie finish that highly, Garrett Wilson was offensive rookie of the year and put up tremendous numbers, but it was a little bit backloaded. So it's been a great run here. This wide receiver class is not last year, but there's still some really intriguing players. My question for you, and I've asked a number of people this, if we're going to get a rookie wide receiver who finishes as a mid wide receiver 1 in fantasy, which player is it in this class and on which landing spot?
Yeah, that's the thing, Theo. Just hearing you talk about like last year's class and some previous classes versus this year's, it's like last year we had all that firepower at wide receiver and a really good quarterback class too. This year not as loaded at those 2 positions, but we have this insane running back class. I mean, it's like last year was a hot fudge sundae, and this year is like baklava. It's like I don't know. Some people might consider that a big step down, but I'm a big baklava fan, and
And shout out to all our Greek listeners. It's Pat is not denigrating baklava. It's still enjoyable. Guys.
Oh yeah, I mean, my stepdad's Lebanese, so I'm a big baklava guy. Nothing better with coffee, Theo. So it's just a different flavor, but still sweet and tasty. And I don't know how much star power there is in this wide receiver class, but I guess if I had to put my chips down on someone, I think it would be Travis Hunter for me, Theo. If some team, and now like before, I know when we did the mock draft with you and Matt Kelly and Debro and I, we saw Travis Hunter slide down a little bit. And to me at the time, like I wouldn't have taken him before the 3rd round just because I thought the chances were that he's going to be a cornerback first and probably would have no greater than a 40% snap share at wide receiver. But now I'm seeing like the teams most likely to possibly take him, the Giants, the Browns, the Patriots, and I think they'd all probably play him at wide receiver before cornerback because like at least in the case of the Patriots and the Giants, those teams are pretty set at cornerback and have a major need at wide receiver. I mean, maybe not major with the Giants having Malik Neighbors, but beyond him, not much else. So, and I do think Travis Hunter, if I knew he was going to be a full-time wide receiver, he would be my wide receiver 1 ahead of Tat. I just think he's a freaky athlete. I know my guy Debro has some concerns about his route running, but like the ball skills and the athleticism are going to play in the NFL. And I could totally see him being a wide receiver 1 at some point soon, if not as a rookie, if he's getting those full-time wide receiver snaps.
Yeah, no, I like it. And when it comes to Hunter, if we took cornerback out of the equation, I think he'd be right up there behind Genty and certainly right next to McMillan. You see the wide range of rankings for Hunter because there are people with a ton of trepidation. Could I be drafting a guy who is not usable? And I don't necessarily think it's not usable. Certainly if you play Dynasty best ball, he's usable no matter what. But could it be opponent specific? Could it be a situational usage? Could it be a guy who is playing both sides of the ball and then a injury occurs to an important cornerback and the team says, you know what, we've really got to cut back on Hunter because he's now our cornerback 1. So many things go through my mind when it comes to Travis Hunter, but talent-wise, it's definitely not one of them. To me, he's a Garrett Wilson type wide receiver that's had to play cornerback. So we've definitely left a little bit of meat on the bones in terms of his development because he's had to put so much into it to be an elite level defensive player. Pat, playing every single snap attending all positional meetings, which apparently he did at Colorado. And it's still a guy who's an incredibly quick processor. Is incredible student, was like near 4.0 level student, like next level thinker, next level athlete. Hunter is definitely an outlier, definitely different, and an exceptional talent. I just hope that we get a little more clarity in the silly season between the Thursday of the first round of the NFL draft and 9 days later, when a lot of people have their dynasty rookie drafts that are that following Saturday. I hope we get some coach speak saying, yes, we're super excited for him to be a wide receiver. We're absolutely going to use him on that side of the ball. I like the idea of Mike Vrabel getting him. It's just I trust Vrabel to be a rule breaker, an outlier. Vrabel's a guy who's been a very aggressive coach. He played both sides of the ball, even though it was a minuscule percent. The guy still caught a lot of touchdowns. He saw the advantage the Patriots had under Bill Belichick with guys who were versatile. So I think, like, if there's an NFL coach that's going to say, you know what, Dion had it right, we're doing the exact same thing, we're playing him every snap, it's Vrabel. And also, we talk about that wide receiver room. New England might have the worst wide receiver room in the NFL, probably the worst wide receiver room in the NFL right now. So they have a need for Travis Hunter as well. So a lot to unpack. I agree with you. I think he's got a huge upside potential.
Yeah, that is probably the dream landing spot. Theo, pair him with Drake May as like Drake May is number one wide receiver. The Patriots don't really need a corner because they've got Christian Gonzalez. They signed Carlton Davis. So I would just assume that he would start off as a wide receiver and maybe be like a dime cornerback for them. So yeah, I love your thinking on that. But wherever we put Travis Hunter in our rankings right now, it's going to be just a placeholder till we find out what the team that drafts him has planned for him. And I think probably any of us who have Travis Hunter, even if we know he's going to be a wide receiver in year one, we're probably like having some restless nights worrying about a rug pull at some point down the road where he maybe is switched over to become a primary cornerback and a part-time wide receiver. So I don't want to think about that just yet, though, Theo, especially if I wind up with Travis Hunter on any of my rookie or any of my dynasty teams.
So why don't you give us the rest of your wide receiver rankings? Take it as deep as you want on this one, Pat.
Yeah, so I've got Tet McMillan at number one right now. I've got Emeka Egbuka number two. I just feel like he's such a safe play, just going to be a high-level NFL slot receiver. So Matthew Golden right now at number three. The speed obviously is going to play. I think his route running is pretty advanced too. And, kind of like people are going to inspect his background and how he, started at Houston. But like that was a weird situation. He was like sort of behind Tank Dell, who was like the star there. And that's why he maybe wasn't that productive early in his career. But then we saw him outproduce Isaiah Bond last year and really become the go-to guy for Quinn Ewers down the stretch. Travis Hunter in that placeholder spot at number four. Luther Burden, who's just this vexing guy for me, Theo. If I have a weakness as far as a rookie prospector, it's that I fall for these short area catch and run wide receivers a little too hard sometimes. And I'm worried about that with Luther Burden, who was just, you put on his tape from his sophomore year at Missouri and it's just stunning. The guy's so good in the open field. It's crazy, but he's got to go to the right scheme and get a good play caller. If he does, I think he could be electric. Alec Ayomanor, a big crush of mine, just this terrific prospect from Stanford, like this big physical guy, really maybe one of the best blocking wide receivers in the class, and famously put up almost 300 receiving yards against Colorado in 2023 with 11 of the 13 catches he had in that game coming against Travis Hunter. Now, a Colorado fan pointed out to me that Travis Hunter, I think, was playing hurt at the time. And, he did have a 99-yard catch against some other cornerback in that game. But, man, Ayomanor, though, is just so, as far as the big physical receivers, and we got a bunch of them in this class, he's my favorite. Right ahead of another one at number 7, Jaden Higgins from Iowa State. Then Jalen Noel, his teammate at such different guys. Noel, this sort of really impressive, athletic, crafty slot receiver, and Higgins, this big potential X guy in the NFL. It's just these two different flavors, and I have a hard time figuring which one I like more. Jack Bech at number 9, who's really obviously helped himself a lot in the pre-draft process with a great Senior Bowl week. And, I think he tested pretty well at the combine. And then Trey Harris, who I know a lot of people love and have closer to the top 5. And I like him too. I don't like him that much less than Alec Ayamaner, but I do like him a little bit less. He looks a little bit lumbering to me at times when you watch him on tape, but big physical receiver. Like I don't think we should dock him too much for lack of speed.
Yeah, I'm not very high on Trey Harris. I know that's a Debro guy. We've talked about this. He has him exceptionally high, and I think that one will shake out after the NFL draft. Again, we'll know what NFL teams think about Trey Harris pretty quickly. But you bring up the kind of the big SEC wide receiver. Harris is 23 years old. He's a bigger player. Certainly, there's some things to like. He had 1,000 yards in 8 games, but you've seen this multiple seasons with the Xavier Legette, Jonathan Mingo, Cedric Tillman, and of course Tillman had his big run this year of production, but it was a limited sample size. But it's been this big SEC receiver that's gone somewhere on early day 2, or in Legette's case, late day 1. It's sort of an archetype. I think Harris will be somewhere in that wheelhouse. Not going to be a first-round pick, and also didn't run as fast as we thought he would at the combine. Certainly not a reason to knock him, but there was a narrative that Harris was going to be a low 4.4 guy, and he would be pushed up into like pick 35 or higher. That certainly doesn't look like it's going to be the case. So I'm definitely not as high on Harris as well. My rankings, Ted at 1, Hunter at 2. I'll keep him at 2 until we have to push him down, like you said. If we find out, that this is going to be a full-time cornerback, maybe a little situational pass catcher, of course, I'm not going to draft him 2 overall, but just reflective on his talent, he's right there too. Matthew Golden, I've actually moved up recently to wide receiver 3. Egbuka at 4, Burden at 5, Jalen Knoll for me at 6, Elic Ayamaner at 7. I've had Ayamaner higher than Knoll. I'm getting really into Jalen Knoll's ability to have an impact next year. I think both those guys are great values. Jalen Knoll, Elic Ayamaner, and then Jaden Higgins, Knoll's teammate, I have at wide receiver 8. Wide receiver 9, I have Jalen Royals from Utah State. And then wide receiver 10, I'll call it a tie. It's cheating, but Jack Bech and Trey Harris at wide receiver 10. Let's talk about tight end, Pat. Tight end, assuming Loveland and Warren are your tight end 1 and 2, who's your tight end 3?
It's Harold Fannin. I just can't get past the production, and I know it was at Bowling Green, but it's 1,500 yards and 117 catches. And, I do worry that he's kind of one of these move tight ends who isn't going to be able to play in line, most likely, which takes him off the field in some spots. That might cap him at like a 65% snap share. But man, like the receiving upside, I mean, we saw what it was in college and what this guy can do if he's used creatively. So that puts him to me ahead of I've got Elijah Arroyo 4th, who had the great Senior Bowl week. Like the college production, I know like he dealt with some injuries and that was a little spotty. And I guess he didn't test at the pro day, which some people weren't that thrilled about. But like after the top 3, then it's kind of a jumble for me with Arroyo. Mason Taylor is my number 5, just the bloodlines, obviously the son of former Dolphins edge rusher Jason Taylor. Then I've got Aronde Gadsden, Gunnar Helm, Terrance Ferguson, all sort of crammed together there just outside the top 5.
Yeah, and Arroyo for me is my tight end 3. I have Fannin at 4, so we're not far off. I'm less concerned about Arroyo testing at the 40 at the pro day because we have the miles per hour data with him. He hit 21.5 miles per hour last year. Brock Bowers hit like 21.9. So this is like very good speed, explosive speed that we need at the tight end position. And Arroyo had this exceptional Senior Bowl performance where he really stood out specifically for his athleticism, moves differently. Then Fannin for me at the 4. And then, like you said, tight end 5 is difficult. I think it's Mason Taylor because Mason Taylor's a difficult player to project fantasy-wise, but I think he's got a shot. He's a younger prospect, and I think he's a surefire starting tight end in the NFL. He's going to be on the field early, absolute unit. But again, does he have the upside of the 4 guys ahead of him? Fannin could be drafted rounds, like a full round later than Taylor, would be sort of the argument to pushing Taylor even higher. And I know there are people that are doing that, but I agree with you. Fannin's sort of like this. If he lands in round 3 to a good situation, I'm all over Fannin. It's going to take a team committing to using him to a high number of snaps and committing to using him as a really a full-time player. I worry a little bit about him being a situational pass catcher, which could help a lot of NFL teams actually on the field, but doesn't do a whole lot for us in terms of predicting his usage. But unbelievable production, did it against the big schools. I think very, very highly of Harold Fannin Jr. Let's jump into our. Oh, I'm sorry, Pat. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask you one thing about the tight ends real quick, Theo. Do you have Warren ahead of Loveland right now? And if so, how big do you perceive that gap to be?
I don't think it's massive. I have Warren as the tight end 1. There's a few things to like there. If I'm drafting a tight end in my Dynasty rookie draft extremely highly, and when it comes to Warren and Loveland, they're both going to go very, very high. Warren's a little bit older. I think there's a little less of a it's what you see is what you get type with him. He's like almost 3 years older than Loveland. I think Loveland might have a little more room to run as a prospect in NFL teams' eyes. But Warren, just an exceptional target earner, unbelievable production at Penn State. He's got the outside chance of being a Wildcat QB and getting a little bit of production on the ground as well, which we love to see. I just think Warren, he's coming into the NFL at the right time. We saw Brock Bowers, we saw Trey McBride last year, both have over 100 catches, finished 3 and 4 all-time in NFL history in terms of receptions. We've seen rookie tight ends finish as the tight end 1 in consecutive seasons with Sam Laporta and Brock Bowers. I think NFL teams are just going to be really more than willing to try to emulate that model in sort of a copycat NFL where Tyler Warren, they might just thrust him in a similar usage to Brock Bowers. I don't think he's Brock Bowers, but I think he's good enough that he could come out and put up top 6 numbers out the gate. Loveland's awesome, though. Like, when we talk about Loveland, the route running ability, the athleticism, there's so much to like there. He's actually taller than Tyler Warren, and like we said, he's younger. And yesterday with Matt Kelly, we did a bold prediction show. We did a special NFL draft one, and spoiler alert, if this one comes out before that video, I predicted that Tyler Warren would be drafted 13 overall and Colson Loveland 14 overall. So I have them going very, very high, both in the top 15. I think Tyler Warren has a higher ceiling. Someone might pull the trigger in the first 10 picks, but I think they're both going to go very, very highly. And I think both of them are easy top 10 dynasty tight ends right out the gate. So you don't need to pull your hair out trying to figure out, just get exposure to both of them. But if I had to pick one, it's Tyler Warren. I love Tyler Warren. I push him up. If you don't like the wide receivers this year, just take Tyler Warren or one of these running backs and you'll be fine. So that's sort of a long-winded response to you.
I totally hear you on all that. It is fun, like the way Warren was used so creatively, and he is this former high school quarterback, and like they gave him the ball on jet sweeps and everything. Like, he's just so good with the ball in his hands. Wears 44 because of John Riggins, apparently, and like he is John Riggins with the ball. He looks for violence. He's like George Kittle with the ball in his hands. And now I did put down a bet, Theo. I got plus 300 on Colston Loveland to be the first tight end drafted. And I kind of think it's going to happen because he's 2 years younger. And I know that NFL teams are very, very into arm length. And maybe the biggest knock on Tyler Warren is that he's got pretty short arms, like really short arms for a tight end. And I wonder if that might spook some teams a little bit, and they might see the potential with Loveland being younger, being maybe more the physical body type prototype that they want. So, but it's really interesting. Like, Loveland didn't put up massive numbers at Michigan, but there's a narrative for that he played on this run first team that won the national championship and then played with terrible quarterbacks last year. And Tyler Warren had the late breakout at Penn State, but Penn State always had some pretty good tight ends. Pat Fryermuth when he came in, Brenton Strange, Theo Johnson. So, definitely narratives why maybe each of these guys didn't quite do what we wanted statistically until Warren had that massive year in his final year at Penn State. But man, there's a lot to like with both guys for sure. It's going to be really interesting to see where they land. And man, I just wish the Colts weren't one of these tight end needy teams that's probably going to take one of them, because I don't want one of these guys to end up on the Colts where I'm not feeling great about the outlook.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like offenses change. Certainly, quarterback in Indianapolis, the long-term answer might not be on the roster. So for me, I'm looking for the draft capital, and I think offenses will adjust to their personnel when it comes to these guys. Loveland, it's sort of like Sam Laporta also didn't have massive production, but he dominated every single statistical category for Iowa. It's the same thing with Loveland. The Michigan offense this year was a train wreck, but he led them in targets, led them in receptions, receiving yards, touchdowns, like you name it. And the year before, it was 3 fewer receptions than Roman Wilson, almost led the national title team in receptions as well. So Loveland's awesome. Warren's awesome. Go get yourself some. I like your bet, though, Pat. I think that's a really fun and great value, really sharp bet right there. Let's unwrap some of these sleepers, and let's specifically start out with a wide receiver that we talked about this yesterday, about the players we want to discuss. Let's talk about Tai Felton. And Tai Felton was a mega producer at Maryland, a huge percent of Maryland's offense. He had a strong Senior Bowl week, not quite the buzz of guys like Jalen Knoll, Jack Bech, Jaden Higgins, but Felton routinely was viewed as one of the winners multiple days of the Senior Bowl practices. This was also a player that had a very solid NFL combine. Your thoughts on Felton as an NFL prospect?
Yeah, really exciting combine, really exciting production. I mentioned my colleague Ryan Wormley, one of the he hosts our Dynasty podcast. He's a Maryland guy, so he was like, grilling me on what I knew about Felton after the season. I'm like, I know he was productive. I watched some Maryland games. He had good games, but he's like, watch the tape. And Felton is this guy. He's thin. He's like 6'2" and played at like 185 or something like that. But he doesn't look skinny, and he's actually like good after the catch and has some tackle breaking ability for a lighter guy. Like he's I don't know, not a guy I'm worried about being skinny. Really good at tracking the ball. I think that's kind of his special sauce, is that like when the ball is in the air, like he is on it all the way, and then he has really good hands. Occasionally, like on easier throws, maybe he has a bad habit of letting the ball get into his body. But man, I just watching some of the plays this dude made, and like how quickly he gets up to speed, and then like what he can do after the catch once he has the ball in his hands. Like I kind of fell in love with him a little bit, or at least fell in like with him on the tape. Now, I don't think he should go before the 4th round in a rookie draft, but I think he's one of these guys who's going to make a roster and stick around for a while and work his way into a receiver rotation.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think with Felton, I think the hope is that he's a top 3 wide receiver on a team in year 1, with a chance to be like an opportunistic wide receiver 2 on an NFL roster. But he checks off some boxes here. He's tall. He's got that lanky 6'2", 190-pound frame. And then again, he just dominated production. So it's hard. Like we think about what happened last year with a guy like Malik Washington, where obviously very different players, but Malik would have been a higher pick had he not had the injury concerns, ends up falling to day 3. I think with Felton, I think he'll end up being a 4th round pick. This seems like the kind of profile where an NFL team's going to pull the trigger in round 4. Where he ends up becoming as a pro, I'm not sure, but we can't ignore this sort of production in the Big Ten. And then he backs it up with a solid Senior Bowl, solid combine. So I'm sort of with you on Felton. Let's talk about Jack Bech, because this is a guy where not really a sleeper, obviously the MVP of the Senior Bowl. And I think this is a guy who will be a day 2 pick. But when it comes to Bech, I don't think there's a whole lot of enthusiasm for him in terms of potential as a fantasy producer. I've likened him to an Adam Thielen. He has a strong frame. He's a former tight end. And when you see him, especially live and in person, well built. He's like 6'2", 215, very strong frame. For me, Jack Bech is going to be the kind of guy that NFL teams are going to use right out the gate. He's a very good route runner. He's got versatility. Like we said, the size, had 1,000 yards receiving last year. Also had that year at LSU where people have kind of taken this all over the place, but he did have 1 year of production where he outperformed a very, very young Malik Neighbors and obviously a very, very young Brian Thomas Jr. But Bech had like 40 catches that year, surrounded by a bunch of NFL talent. Of course, transfers to TCU. I bring up Thielen because I think this was Adam Thielen was never a guy that obviously he was an undrafted free agent, but it took him a while to sort of get going. And then once he got a role, a significant role, the production just took off. There's been upside people where really the enthusiasts for Jack Bech will whisper names like Puka Nacua in terms of his potential usage. I think that's a really too high of a bar to cross, obviously. But when it comes to Bech, I think there should be more enthusiasm with him than there is now in the community. Both of us had him ranked like around wide receiver 10. I think if he's a chance, he's a second-round pick, and there's a correction here. But even if he's a third-round pick, he's the kind of guy that I want to have on my Dynasty roster and see the way this thing shakes out. But I think it could be a quicker study in the NFL than some people are giving credit to. Your thoughts on his rookie potential and his long-term potential?
Yeah, Theo, I wish I could bet on my Green Bay Packers getting one of Jack Bech or Alec Manor, because I feel like the Packers really value the receivers who can block, and like those are probably two of the better blocking receivers in the draft. He's just this really interesting, like physical type of big receiver, and we've had these classes in years past where we got like a bunch of really good little slot guys, but not much as far as like the big outside receivers, and we have a bunch of those dudes this year. And, I don't think anyone should be worried about a late breakout for Bech because he started at LSU, right? And he was buried behind Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors. So, I like him a lot. I know he had a great Senior Bowl week that got a lot of people excited. I think you were down there in Mobile, right?
Yep.
To watch him. And, and just, it seems like he's got the right sort of mentality when you listen to him being interviewed. He's just like, he seems like a team guy and really selfless and just like good character. So yeah, I'm very much with you on Jack Bech, and he's inside my top 10 at receiver.
Yeah, I think it's just this is a player where the upside could be higher than the community's giving him. And at the very least, you're going to get a guy who's going to be a rotational pass catcher with the potential to take on a larger role as the season moves along. So I think when it comes to Bech, when you're going to get third round rookie draft pick exposure to him, it makes me like him a lot more. Now, if he lands perfectly and it's like a head-to-head decision with guys like Manor, guys like Jalen Noel, which I don't anticipate, then I'll pass on Bech. But where I anticipate he's going to be available in rookie drafts versus his potential outcome, that's sort of my argument for him. Let's go with the wide receiver that's really deep here. Nick Nash of San Jose State was one of the most productive players in college football last year offensively. Been sort of a throwaway guy for a lot. Where are you at on Nash, his potential in the NFL, and maybe describe him a little bit as a prospect? Because I'll tell you what, Pat, this has not been a player that anybody's really wanted to talk about on Dynasty Life until you today.
Yeah, probably a fourth or fifth rounder even in rookie drafts, Theo, but he is a really intriguing dude. I could never be on team skinny because I like pizza and beer too much, but apparently I am on team skinny wide receiver this year because Nash is another pretty lanky guy, like 6'3", maybe just under 200 pounds. Really interesting case, converted from a dual threat quarterback to wide receiver in 2022. And so he's got this big wingspan, man. And that's why he had 16 touchdown catches, which I believe led FBS this past year at San Jose State, along with 104 receptions, 1,382 yards. He's big. This dude wins contested catches in the air, has that crazy wingspan. I think he does still need some route running refinement. I mean, this was, after all, a dude who converted from quarterback. He does have this sort of bad habit of rising up out of his breaks, which could telegraph his routes potentially. But man, the raw tools here are pretty impressive. And when you watch him, like, he's really good against zone. Like, he just knows how to find soft spots in zone. And I think part of that might trace to his quarterback background. And I think that quarterback background might help him make the transition to the NFL. So kind of a deep sleeper, but I think he's a really good way to spend a 5th round rookie pick.
Yeah, and he had 176 targets last year, which is just absurd. And he's a taller player that played the slot. So again, interesting profile. And I think it's one where you can throw a dart and kind of see the way this ends up. He's older. He's 24 years old. So it's sort of a what you see is what you get at the wide receiver spot when you're drafting a player that old. But Nash is definitely an interesting one. And like you said, Pat, this is a guy that is going to get drafted pretty late in terms of our rookie. He's a free pick in a lot of leagues. Some leagues he won't even be selected unless he has some sort of positive outcome in the NFL draft. But I think we'd both agree he's a day 3 pick in the NFL draft as well. So interesting one. Keep Nick Nash in the back of your mind during NFL draft weekend. Let's talk about a player we both love, and I think we're both higher than consensus on. My RB8, Damien Martinez, 20 years old, was not quite as big as I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to be 225 plus. He's been somewhere in the 215 to 217 range at both the Senior Bowl and the NFL Combine, but mega productive player at Oregon State, then transfers to Miami, becomes the first Hurricane to rush for 1,000 yards in like 8 years. And the tape is awesome. Like really, really physical player, carries defenders with him, has explosiveness. I'm very high on Martinez. I think this is exactly the kind of player, Pat, where it's almost punitive, the players in this class with Martinez. I think if this were last year, he'd be somewhere in that Marshawn Lloyd discussion of a guy that we're excited about that might go on day 2. But because it's this year, I think there's scenarios where Martinez might get pushed down to like the 4th round. I still believe an NFL team is going to call his name in round 3, but I'm high on him. I think this is the kind of guy that could end up being a starting running back in the NFL for multiple seasons.
Yeah, you had mentioned a couple of guys who are in your top 10 who are not in my top 10, but I still love Damien Martinez and Bech. Like those guys are 11 and 12 for me. And like this draft is so deep that I actually love guys all the way out to RB12, RB13. So the funny thing is, Theo, when I was kind of digging in on Damien Martinez and watching like a lot of him rather than just watching a Miami game or whatever, like he so much reminded me of Le'Veon Bell at Michigan State in that he's this bigger dude who runs like he's a scat back. Like he's a small back trapped in a bigger back's body. Like surprising lateral agility for this bigger dude. And he's like shifty in traffic and like, well, he'll break ankles with some of his moves, has this knack for dodging big hits and like really good vision and good at picking his way through traffic between the tackles. Now, like, I don't know if he is a bowl you over power guy, but like he's going to be hard to bring down because like this dude is just so big. You're not going to get him with an arm tackle. And he does make yardage after the contact, not so much because he's this battering ram pushing piles, but because he's so shifty that dudes just can't hit him square. So, like I don't think he's going to be a speed back, but like he is the perfect sort of guy to pair in like a sort of thunder and lightning combination. I guess he's the thunder, even though I think he has lightning in his heart.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to Martinez, what's interesting is there's been like everybody wants to compare every running back in this class to David Montgomery and James Conner, but there's a little Conner there because I think Martinez is also underrated as a receiver. So for me, Martinez checks a lot of boxes. I wonder where he would be, Pat, if he would have gone back to Miami this year and had another year of development and been in a class that was a little more wide open. Could he have steamed up and been a guy that ended up maybe being a top 4 back next year? I think that could have happened. I think really with Martinez, you're drafting him a year early. I don't think there's a whole lot of difference in terms of level of prospect with Damien Martinez and what we saw last year again with guys like Trey Benson, guys like Marshawn Lloyd, who were drafted in the 3rd round. So I'm high on him. Let's go with another guy that you listed, and certainly a player that I think will be a day 3 pick, Tahj Brooks. And there's been sort of a positive buzz for Tahj Brooks this entire offseason. Doesn't go to the Senior Bowl, goes to the Shrine Bowl, is one of the better backs at the Shrine Bowl, had a lot of college experience, Texas Tech back. This year had a high volume of carries. Your thoughts on Brooks? Also did fine at the combine. Maybe a little more athletic than some people indicated.
Yeah, 26 carries a game this past fall, Theo, and that's how good the class is, that Tahj Brooks is falling through the cracks after consecutive 1,500-yard rushing seasons at Texas Tech, in a power conference. So Tahj is, I think he's like 5'9", maybe 5'10", but he was listed at 230 in college. I don't think he weighed that much at the combine, but guys do drop weight to, run a decent 40. And he did run a decent 40. I don't have it in front of me, but off the top of my head, I think it was 4.52. And Tahj is, I don't know, it's kind of trite to say that he is a bowling ball, but that's kind of what he is. He's got this low center of gravity, hard to knock him off his feet, really patient runner who waits for plays to develop, reads his blocks, and pretty good lateral agility for a bigger back, and the contact balance you would expect from a bigger back. Not exceptional, but pretty hard to tackle, and he's pretty good at the goal line. The thing about him, I think, that might be overlooked, Theo, and I know some fantasy people roll their eyes when we talk about this, is Tahj is maybe the best pass blocking running back in this class. And that doesn't do anything for us in fantasy, but it keeps you on the field in the NFL. And I think it was my buddy Thor Nystrom who, when he was doing a comp for Tahj Brooks, maybe comped him to Zach Moss. Now
Yes.
that maybe doesn't sound like the most flattering comp in the world, because Zach Moss, had a hard time beating out Devin Singletary in Buffalo, and really just had that moment in the sunshine when Jonathan Taylor got hurt early in 2023, and he sort of balled out for 5 or 6 games or whatever. But Moss is a good pass blocker, and that has kept him employed in the NFL for 6 years now. And Tahj is going to find his way onto the field because he can pass block. And that was the thing with Zach Moss. We thought, maybe Chase Brown, because he's this faster, more explosive guy, would be sort of the satellite back, and it would be Zach Moss on the early downs. No, it's kind of reversed, because Chase Brown is kind of a train wreck in pass protection, but he has so much more juice than Zach Moss. But Zach Moss was basically the third down back for the Bengals before he got hurt last year. And maybe Tahj Brooks has a similar sort of career arc, although hopefully Tahj Brooks would be able to beat out someone like Devin Singletary.
Yeah, Brooks is interesting because he feels like the kind of guy that'll end up being a number 3 back, but then could earn the number 2 back. Brooks is, to me, the kind of guy that it feels like at some point he might be a waiver wire ad. It's a guy that, Pat, nobody dislikes Tahj Brooks, but again, it's where can you rank him in this class? And a lot of people are having to push him way down, but I had an opportunity to podcast with Thor a few times this offseason. He's a big Tahj Brooks fan. Anytime you talk about a sleeper running back, and Thor's so good that he'll give a bunch of sleepers and he'll say, this is my round 3 sleeper, my round 4, whatever. But Brooks has been a guy where he made that Moss comparison to me as well. And yeah, it makes total sense. So I think he's very interesting. And again, he's an end game type grab where potentially there could be an injury in the preseason, and an NFL team, I think, would be comfortable enough having Tahj Brooks as a number 2 back. Interesting, because he might be a 6th round pick in this class. So just goes to show you the overall depth and quality of this class. Here's a back that I think has some pretty high upside. Jarquez Hunter. And Jarquez Hunter, this is a guy that is not big, but he's very strong. And this is a player that looks like he'll be a committee back in the NFL, but there's a lot to like about him. He had 21 catches last year, but a lot of NFL teams have signaled him out apparently as a guy who projects to be a receiver at the next level. Had very good production. Of course, he produced early in his career at Auburn. As a freshman, he had 600 rushing yards. As a sophomore, nearly 700. And then the last 2 seasons, the production has gone way up. And it's been very efficient production as well. Of course, we had Tank Bigsby playing alongside him. but the production next to Tank Bigsby, like he averaged over 6 yards per carry in 3 seasons of his college career. And even with Tank Bigsby, who's been a player that was a 3rd-round pick for Jacksonville and last year had a number of impactful weeks for us in fantasy, even alongside Bigsby as a sophomore, Hunter still stood out and had 7 touchdowns that season as a runner and 2 as a receiver. So he had 9. He had his most touchdowns as a collegiate, tied for it next to Bigsby. For me, Hunter, it's the explosive nature to his game, his potential as a pass catcher, the 4.44 40, and he's also an unbelievably strong player. This was one of the, I think he was a all-state powerlifting champion. There's been a lot of like discussion about his raw strength numbers, but this was a 600-pound squatter in high school, like a guy who was putting up exceptional deadlift and squat numbers very young. And people talk about his athletic exploits at Auburn, like a next level athlete, can do all sorts of things athletically. So for me, Hunter checks off a lot of boxes. And in today's NFL, looking for guys who can thrive on high value touches in a running back by committee, we've been able to extract fantasy value out of that profile multiple times. And with Hunter, it's a guy where, again, he's like running back 15 to 18 range in this class. Some have him higher, but again, like I'm going to be able to take cheap shots on him in my rookie drafts. And I think that the potential outcomes are there where he could be a guy that at some point is in our fantasy lineup.
Yeah, we've got a developer at Fantasy Pros who's an Auburn graduate, and he was really excited to talk to me about Jarquez Hunter and what I thought of him. And he thinks he's really good, and I'm inclined to agree. I didn't know about the powerlifting thing, but that totally checked out because like that's the first thing I have on my notes at him. Like this dude does not want to go down, and he packs quite a punch for a smaller back. Yet he gives you that smaller back speed, and man, like. If you want to see what Jarquez Hunter is all about, I would urge someone to go like Google Jarquez Hunter Kentucky highlights because the Kentucky defense was no joke, man. That was a good front seven this past fall. He ripped that defense apart. He went for something like 238 yards and 2 touchdowns against them. Like this guy is a good player. And again, it's crazy that this guy is like outside our top 12 when we're doing running back rankings in this class. Cause like, I could get this dude at the end of a 3rd round, the 3rd round in a rookie draft, I'd be delighted.
So the nickname for Jarquez was Mississippi Muscle, at least among Auburn circles when he was coming in as a prospect. Here's the raw strength numbers for him. He was the 5A powerlifting champion in the state of Mississippi. So he weighed 198 pounds, and I'm guessing, I don't know if he was 17 or 18 years old, but as a junior in high school, he had a 590-pound deadlift. And this is not like word of mouth. This is like recorded by in the state powerlifting competition. And then at 198 pounds, he had 300-pound bench, squatted 575, and of course, deadlifted 575. So who knows what he's putting up these days as a grown man, but that's exceptional strength for a back that's, sub 210, probably at a playing weight. So Hunter, next level strength. Always love reading about that sort of stuff. Some unbelievable athletes in this running back class, as you would expect. Hunter, a underrated one. Let's talk about DJ Giddens, because DJ Giddens, if there were no Bachel Tutin, the DJ Giddens steam right after the combine would have been exceptional. This is a player who had over 1,300 rushing yards at Kansas State. This is a guy who handled a high amount of volume, was very much the focal point of the offense there. And Giddens now, I think with what we saw at the combine, the writing is on the wall where he's going to steam up into the 3rd round. I think that when it comes to Giddens, there's a complete outside chance if there is a running back gravitational pull and we start seeing a few players get steamed up, he might be a very early round 3 pick with a chance to maybe sneak in the end of round 2. Someone might fall in love with this profile, Pat, where this might be a moot conversation. He might be a guy that is going in the 2nd round of rookie drafts, not the 3rd round. So I guess I'm cheating a little bit with Giddens, but I always enjoy talking about him. Where are you at on him as a prospect?
Yeah, I've got him inside my top 10, Theo. Love him. Like he is just, when you watch him, smooth is just the first word that comes to mind. And I know that from a conversation I've had with Matt Waldman, the great Matt Waldman, who does his RSP every year and is so good at film study of these guys. Like he thinks maybe the most underrated attribute for running backs is the ability to change direction without gearing down. I don't know if there's anyone better in this class at doing that than DJ Giddens, who is great at doing that without losing speed. And the funny thing is, Theo, when I watched Giddens, I estimated that he'd be like a 4.56 guy in the 40, and he ran what, 4.43 was it, or something like that?
He ran 4.43 at 212 pounds. So that's when we talk about speed score, that's right there, Pat.
Yeah, and just a really intelligent runner, like patient, good vision, like almost has this way of setting up linebackers with like a little feint and then like cutting sharply in the opposite direction without losing speed and just blowing by guys. So good contact balance. Yeah, there is a lot to like here. And like just highly productive at K-State, where guys sometimes get overlooked. But man, yeah, I like Giddens a lot. And I was almost kind of depressed when he ran that 40 time at the combine because I'm like, oh crap, now other people are going to be on this guy.
Yeah, it's like almost a flip side with Devin Neal, where Devin Neal ran the disappointing 40, and we thought he'd be really fast. Giddens runs this exceptional 40, and we didn't anticipate it. And I think as a receiver, we talk about he's 212 pounds, talk about the 4.43. He had nearly 60 receptions over the last 2 years. So there's enough there where he could be at least a dump off guy. And with that athleticism, would he have the potential to become a 45 to 50 reception guy at some point in his career, adding to his fantasy floor? I think Giddens is really, really fun. Let's talk about Terrance Ferguson because this is a player that when we talk about the combine, Ferguson was clearly the winner at the tight end position. Your thoughts on him? And like you mentioned, you have him ranked a little bit lower. Is that just because it's a jumble, or you like a couple of these guys a little bit more than him?
Kind of a jumble, and I think draft capital is going to sort it out for me, Theo. And if Terrance Ferguson sneaks into like the back end of the second round or something, I'm going to be moving him way up. And yeah, it's the athleticism we like, and I know that like I don't know if it was Scott Barrett of Fantasy Points who did a study on like tight end prospects and found that like by far the best predictor of NFL success was athleticism. And Ferguson just tested like a champ at the combine. Like he's one of the, if not the most athletic tight end in this class, I believe. So I know there's a lot of noise with tight end numbers, and we sort of talked about that with Warren and Loveland and how maybe their college production at points in their careers wasn't that great. Maybe it was sort of the same thing with Ferguson, who played with some really good wide receivers at Oregon. And, like your eyes aren't going to bug out when you look at his college numbers. But the athleticism, man, it's going to play in the NFL. So for sure, probably a guy I'm going to have to move up from TE7 or TE8, whatever I've got him at now.
Yeah, and I think he's got a chance of going inside the second round, which is, again, with tight ends, we'll see hit rates where guys sometimes fall a little bit and can still be really, really big time producers for us. But at the end of the day, a second round draft capital for a player with this sort of athleticism. A lot of competition for targets at Oregon. But Ferguson was a guy like at the Senior Bowl, was sort of a little bit forgotten it because there was so much buzz with Arroyo, people certainly trying to watch Fannin, and then Mason Taylor was there. But Ferguson did well. He's got a very basketball-like frame. He's long, he's fast, and exceptionally athletic. It's not unlike Luke Musgrave, who obviously didn't pan out for us in fantasy, but was a second-round pick. Ferguson could end up being there. This could end up being a correction guy. Pat, I kept you here an hour and 20 minutes. I told you it was going to be 45 minutes, but we just had so much fun. And I think we got a lot out of this one. Let everybody know once again what you have going on this time of year and where they can find your work.
Theo, thanks a lot again for having me. I know we had a time goal, but I was pretty sure that when you and I get together to talk about rookies, that we're going to overshoot the mark every time. So yeah, people can find me. Obviously go to Fantasy Pros, check out the Fantasy Pros football podcast and the Fantasy Pros Dynasty podcast. And I'm on Twitter at Fitz_FF.
Yeah, and make sure you're following Dynasty Life on the podcast feed. I'm going to put the Apple feed. I'm going to put the Spotify feed right in the show description. Leaving Player Profiler YouTube. We're going to squeeze out maybe one more episode before April 1st. But I really appreciate our YouTube audience at Player Profiler. There'll be a new YouTube home for Dynasty Life sometime soon, but not at the very beginning of April. Got to subscribe to the podcast for more guests like Pat. We got some great guests lined up for the month of April. Scott Barrett's coming on. Ryan McDowell's coming on. We're going to the mattresses, so to speak, to get you ready to crush your rookie drafts and crush your dynasty leagues this season. We'll see you soon.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.